Well. Good morning. Coffee Conversations with Greg J is on. Yeah. Y'all doing okay? Good morning. Tuesday, 17th. You know, I keep saying this every day, man. I keep saying there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. And every time I think we're going to get a break, there's a lot going on, contemplating over there in Afghanistan. They pulled out, Taliban running over the city, the president coming on and saying he stands by his decision. There's all this discussion out here across all of our communities about whether that was the right thing to do. COVID, one moment receding, next moment, coming back stronger than ever, different variants and all of this here. Now this morning they talking about we're going to need another booster shot. A lot going on. We're considering what's happening all around our communities, an uptick in violence, an uptick in crime. We don't know what's going on out here. Is it people in desperation? Some folks say it's because they've been releasing folks out of the penitentiary. Others just say, the increase in the purchase of guns. Just a lot. School started. Are our children safe? Just a lot. Got a little bit of some news about a week or so ago about a person that I really, really, admire and respect. Found murdered in her home. Struck me deeply. Not that I knew Sister personally, but knew of her and being in the community, crossed paths many, many times, and, brought me to tears to hear of this tragic death. Trauma to the face. Look in the newspapers all across the community. Everybody, people all across the community are shocked and appalled. This one hit deep, right? Deep. Then come to find out, the person that arrested for that heinous crime was a colleague. It's just like a bizarre story, dude. I don't know. And I haven't quite balanced my soul at this news. It just really, really hit me deep. So today we want to kind of dedicate the show, the presentation today, the information today to the memory of Michelle Avan, Bank of America executive, community queen. That's what I say. Because it really turns a lens to this whole notion of gender-based violence. And, in as much that we are community-based in what we talk about here, we are global. We tell you that all the time. We tell you that we are about building bridges of music, arts, and culture between Africa and African America. And the reason that this is important is because, if you recall in some of the shows, or even if you go back through our catalog and see our shows where we link up with our brothers and sisters over in Africa, and especially Southern Africa, we find that gender-based violence is a major concern in the community. Not only in Africa, here, right at home. So I was having this conversation, I always bring the experts, my friends out here, let's have this conversation, and, she was telling me some interesting stuff, and I was like, dang, sisters are walking around living in silence, man, carrying the burden of, being attacked. Women are walking around here afraid, literally afraid of us men, you know, and it could be a deadly proposition. So let me bring my friend on in here and sip coffee, chop it up about this whole thing about gender-based violence and a few other topics here. Let's just see where it goes. Ladies and gentlemen, the executive director of the Positive Results Corporation. Here she is. Kandee Lewis, are you there? Good morning.
Good morning, Greg. How are you?
Doing all right. Just fighting the good fight. How are
That's
you
what
this
we have to
morning?
do. That's what we
Mm-hmm,
have to do.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. You know, our friend Michelle Avan passed away in a tragic manner. Um, how are you feeling? I know that when you and I talked, it was, hey, it's a big deal. It's a big wound to our soul. Express that to the people. How do you feel right now?
Well, first, let me say thank you for having me on. And thank you so much for doing this conversation. And in honor of our friend Michelle, I personally am feeling discombobulated.
Mhm.
Um, you're right. My soul, have I froze?
No, you're,
Okay.
you're you're doing okay.
Okay, good. My soul and my spirit are definitely uneasy. Um, I I knew Michelle. I did not know her as well as some people, and I want to send my sincere condolences to her family and her close friends and her coworkers. But I know that every one of us is feeling really heartbroken about the situation. And the reason I feel that is Michelle and I have known each other for the last few years, and we've communicated back and forth on LinkedIn and Facebook and
Mm,
just chatting here and there. And then we started speaking again, I'm going to say maybe March, April. And we've had a lot of conversation. And I happened to see her the Thursday before she was murdered. And we had such a great conversation. But it breaks my heart because I was at an event I was asked to speak at. And I started the conversation to all of the 45 women in the room that there's all of us as women, we carry a secret. We carry the secret of violence and abuse. And it may not be ours personally, but it's someone that we love, it's someone that we're close to, and that we're not alone and it is not our fault. So I happened to see her at that event and I said that in the room. And so it leaves my spirit unsettled. And then she and I talked for maybe 10 minutes afterwards. And we had such a great conversation about the work that we do and working with young Black girls and helping them to live out their dreams. I'm further discombobulated because I was on a panel the day before with her alleged murderer. And I have to say alleged because until the courts prove it, that is what we have to say.
mm,
Um, and so to hear the following week that she was killed, it just breaks my heart so much so. But it also makes me do this work that I do even more because this is not something unusual. I'm sad to say.
mm,
This happens all the time that women and girls are abused every 9 seconds in the United States. Did you hear me? It
wow.
takes longer to dial a phone number, than the number of times that someone is going to be abused. And when
Mm,
we talk about Black women and our children, that number really changes significantly because we are the most hunted people on the planet of the earth. And
mm,
I'm really sorry to say that.
mm, mm.
So,
It's a very profound statistic right there, every 9 seconds. All
yeah.
right. So let me ask you this. I don't I guess what I'm seeing. Okay, so I don't see. You're talking about physical abuse, right? So I don't see this happening. Like, how do we know that to be an accurate statistic?
The Center for Disease Control,
Mhm.
the CDC states this. The Domestic Violence Council state this.
Mhm.
The California Partnership Against Domestic Violence, the Women of Color Network. There are all type of statistics, and the
Mhm.
reason you don't see it is because people who are being abused very often hide it. The
Mhm.
abuser hides it. The abuser looks like a very it can they look every kind of way. They could look from like a child, they could look like a grown adult, they could be a woman, they could be a man, they could be transgender, they could be poor or rich. And very often the reason you don't see it is because of shame and blame. We don't want to talk about it, we don't want to say it, we don't want to let people know, because very often what happens is the first thing, especially if you're a woman of color, you're a liar. They didn't do that. That person is so nice. Oh my God, are you really talking about that person? Wait a minute. That person has a great job. That person has a great career. This person is wealthy. This person is healthy. This person is handsome. This person is beautiful. What happens when someone tells you you're a liar? The first thing you do is you say to yourself, okay, let me just go ahead and be quiet. And because violence doesn't start at 20, 30, 40 years old, violence starts in the womb. Now, let me just present this to you. So, if a woman is in a relationship and she's already being abused, and we already know that in a lifetime, your woman, an average woman, and an average woman is just any woman. We're expected to receive, I think it's 1 out of 4. It is. It's 1 out of 4 women are expected to be abused in their lifetime. But when you look at a woman of color, that number drops down to 2 out of 4 are expected to be abused in their lifetime. And so abuse does not look necessarily like physical. It could
Mhm.
be sexual, emotional, mental, spiritual, financial, medical, or psychological. And
Mhm.
so, if that woman is pregnant and she's already being abused, once she becomes pregnant, the likelihood of her being further abused goes up 66%. Now,
Mhm.
let me put that in terms for you. Imagine this. We tell every woman, sing to your baby. Make sure you eat good food for your baby. But your baby is experiencing the exact same things you are. So when that woman is beaten, that child is beaten. When that
Mhm.
woman is called stupid, dumb, ugly, you'll never amount to anything. You know what? Nobody ever wants you, and all the problems of the world are your fault. That baby experiences this trauma with the mother. And so we are grooming our children to either be abused or to be in an abusive relationship. It becomes our normality. And
Mhm.
so this is what happens. People are accustomed to the negative. And
Mhm.
as we continue to grow, when we're looking for love, all of us are looking for love. We want to be loved, we want to be respected, we want to be trusted. And when someone approaches us and tells us, baby, I love you, I think you are the best thing since sliced bread. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to be with you always. That touches our heart.
Mhm.
And then when that person says, you're so stupid, why didn't you do this? And the first thing we do is like, oh my God, what do I need to do to make this right? And we're not thinking about what did that person do? We internalize it. And so this is how violence happens and continues to grow. Nobody wants it. It's not our fault. Nobody is going out saying, hey, beat me,
Mhm.
abuse me. But it finds us.
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
doesn't matter your age, your ethnicity, your gender, your sexual identity, your educational levels, because we know people I work with people that are as young as 4 years old who are in an abusive relationship because their parents are or their providers are. I also know some women that are 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old that are intelligent, beautiful, dynamic, and they're also in abusive relationships.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. So now, what is the answer? What is I mean, that's a the statistics that you're stating here. I mean, that's a lot of people and a lot of circumstances. This is almost its own pandemic within our community. And what I also see is it is actually a pandemic across the world. I mean, I think that essentially for our total liberation as a people, we really have to preserve the family unit. To me, that's the foundation of everything. But how can we preserve the family unit across the diaspora? If we're beating up each other emotionally, financially, physically, and all of the other ways that you just described, what's the answer? How do we fix it?
Well, first off, let me say I'm glad you said it is a pandemic. And I've been talking about this for years, and as well as other people. And then since COVID, I've said that we are currently living in 5 pandemics. And the first pandemic before the pandemic was domestic violence against women and children, especially against Black women and children. That we are the number one, as I said, hunted people in the world. We have, I think it's like we have a 34.5% rate of violence over everyone else. I mean, like over everyone else. And so the other pandemics, of course, was COVID. And because of COVID, it sent women and children and men, and please forgive me, I keep saying women because today we're talking about gender based violence. But let me be clear, boys and men also are abused by women and by men.
Mhm.
So, because of COVID, people went back into their homes. And so, a lot of domestic violence shelters were looking for people, but because they couldn't get to them, our numbers skyrocketed. And so, what we do at our organization, Positive Results Center, is we create awareness to prevent and end violence. We also work in partnership with the shelters where the people will come to us first. Most Black women do not want to go to a shelter. Most Black women aren't going to go to a shelter. And so we work with them to help them to understand, first off, that the violence that you're experiencing is not your fault. That's the first thing we let them know, and that there is help. And you can't force anyone to get help or to tell you anything until they're ready. And they have to learn to trust. They have to learn to know that you're not going to put them in further harm by talking about them and saying, "You're so stupid. Why don't you just leave?" Let
Mhm.
me say this also. When a woman, a man, or child, or anyone is in an abusive relationship and they get ready to leave or they leave, that is the most dangerous time of their life. That means that someone is likely to kill them, shoot them, or take their life. And
Mhm.
that is when most of the violence happens. So, what can we do about it?
Mhm.
First off, it's unfortunate that this violence is not something new. It is
Mhm.
intergenerational. It
Mhm.
has happened and destroyed our families. It
Mhm.
lives in our families, and it is the secret of many families. Greg,
Mhm.
you don't know about it because maybe it's not happening in your family that you know about. It could
Mhm.
be right in your face, and you would never see it because very often an abused victim will smile. Everything is good. They show up for work, but they are internally beaten, and sometimes the violence is below areas where you cannot see, or it's that emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, sexual. Some things that we could do. First off, if you are in an abusive relationship, know that it is not your fault. You did not ask for it, you did not want it, and find someone that you can trust. Friends and family, be trustworthy. Don't be that kind of person when someone tells you that they're in an abusive relationship and they're looking for help. Don't be like, okay, fix
Mhm.
your
Mhm.
face, get your
Mhm.
face right. Because when you look at somebody and you go into that look, then that's the first sign to let that person know that you don't trust them. Second
Mhm.
off, don't go tell everybody that you know.
Mhm.
Keep their confidence so that they can trust you. Men, something that you could do, Learn when you see a woman who looks like she is fearful, just check in. Hey, how you doing? Is there anything that I can help with? You know, um, men are actually the secret weapon. Not all men are abusive, but enough men are abusive. And more than that, there are enough men that don't say anything. So if you hear a guy talking about that B, that H, I'm going to hit her upside her head, have a conversation with your boy because
Mhm.
they listen to each other. You listen to each other. Talk about, how it's important for you to love and respect a woman, especially a Black woman, whether
Mhm.
you want to marry her or date her or not. That's irrelevant. Let's protect our women and our children. And then
Mhm.
also, something else that we can do: learn about domestic violence, take a class, contact us, get some information. Please don't tell a woman, a man, a child, girl, it's going to get over. You'll get over it. It's good. They'll stop. Don't
Mhm.
tell nobody. Don't do nothing. It'll end. It won't end. It just gets worse.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
let me tell you this: if a person tells you that they're going to kill you better believe it.
Mhm.
100% of the time, that person is going to kill you. It may not happen today, but they are planning to kill you. And I have to say this because very often we say, I know a friend, a sister in this business who was in a relationship with her husband, and he told her he was going to kill her, and he never put his hands on her. He never once put his hands on her until the day that he shot her in her head and in
Wow.
her leg and in her back.
Wow.
So we have to understand the signs, what violence looks like, because it doesn't look like anything in particular. It looks like everything.
Mhm.
There are signs that could tell you this person might not be good for you. The first thing that we need to do is to trust our instincts. We were built in our mother's womb.
Mhm.
Fight, flight, and freeze developed. And so in your mother's womb, you've learned this. So when you meet somebody and your spirit says, "Girl, run," you better run.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, good and single well, every single time you meet somebody and your spirit is discombobulated or you're not feeling good or something happens, and you look back later on and you say, I knew there was something wrong.
Sure.
Believe yourself 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Also, you were going to say something, Greg?
I want to ask you a very abstract question. So,
Sure.
with all of those different, levels of abuse, is it possible to be an abuser and not know it?
Yes. You can, I would say you could have abusive tendencies
Hmm.
and not realize it
Hmm.
because violence is a learned behavior. So when we are growing up, we observe our parents, our siblings, other people that are around us, our caregivers, and we hear somebody cussing all the time. So you hear a lot of people, both boys and girls, men and women, will cuss each other out. And so as you continue to grow, you're having a relationship with somebody and you're cussing them out or you're putting them down and you're demeaning them. That is abusive behavior. Absolutely.
Right. So
Um,
that cussing out is kind of a badge of honor in the Black community. I'm a cuss him out. I'm a cuss him out. I mean, you hear people walking around the hood just like, I'm a cuss him out. I cussed him out. That's part of your bravado. So, we're just inherently abusive, it sounds like.
well, see, I just said that. Violence is not something that we've learned today. This is
Mm,
something that has been in our DNA for
mhm,
generations.
mhm,
We've experienced violence in so many different ways. People put violence on us. This is
mhm,
not a normal thing to Black people. Normally, and back years and years and years and years and years ago, we were loving people and we still are loving people. But the pressures of the world, not being able to get a job. You mentioned it earlier when you first came on about people who have been released from prison and returning into the community. Let me just say the people who returned into the community are some of the nicest people. I
Mhm.
work with them, I hire them, I work with them in the community. But I can also say that some of the nicest people in the world can also be abusive people in the world.
Mhm.
And so it is really about understanding yourself. You have to understand that what may have been okay in the past, you better check yourself as you grow.
Yeah.
How are you presenting yourself? Are you presenting yourself as angry and violent? Are you hitting the walls when you get pissed off?
Mhm.
These are signs that you are an abusive person.
Mhm.
Are you hitting and hurting children and animals? These are signs.
Mhm.
Are you always blaming someone else for your issues? These are signs.
Mhm.
Um, are you constantly fighting? And then also know that although alcohol and drugs are not necessarily signs, a lot of times people become much more abusive and violent. Or sometimes when we are in abusive relationships, we use alcohol and drugs as coping mechanisms.
Mhm. 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 Wow, this is really, 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 really profound, and oh gosh, there's so many, so many questions running around in my mind because this is really concerning to me. I mean, we talked about Michelle Avan when we came on, but um, when I turn this to a global lens, and I did, by the way, invite my good friend Dr. T to join us from Johannesburg, South Africa. This is her a point of advocacy is gender-based violence, and I know when I've had her on before, when I have telephone conversations with her, I'm just amazed at the stories that I hear. A lot of times over in South Africa, the brothers kill the woman that refuses their advances, or one of the most horrific stories that I of recent times is the sister went into the post office, and the postal worker said the debit card machine wasn't working, wants to come back later. So she did. He locked the doors and he killed her, you know what I mean, because she didn't accept his advances. And a lot of times those are tribal or whatever, but there's a lot of hashtags out there on Twitter. The president of South Africa has had to come out and address the women as they've taken to the streets, against gender-based violence. If we are to be a strong global nation of Black people, it just escapes me. How can we become that if we're so busy killing, beating, emotionally, financial, spiritually, and all the isms that you just shared? If we're abusing our women in this way, what I can't figure it out. Why do we do this? And what is the answer? I mean, there's not one where you just say, okay, PCR, you go wave your wand and it's done. So
Right.
I mean, how do we get to this a level of peace between us and our sisters? This is
So
what.
let me first say this. The violence that you spoke of in Africa happens every single day here in Los Angeles and all across the world.
Mhm.
I can give you examples of women, and especially Black women, who have been in a bar with their partner, and their partner went to the restroom, and someone approached them and said, "Can I buy you a drink? Would you like to dance?" And they say, "No, thank you so much, but I'm here with my partner." And the person shot them dead right where they
Mm,
stood or right where they sat. This
mm,
is an everyday occurrence. So, one of the things I'm constantly talking about, how can we educate boys and men? And the reason I say this is because we tell girls all the time, be careful, be safe, don't go out by yourself, make sure that you're doing this and doing that, when we really need to be talking to those who are doing the most harm. And so, as a educator, and let me just digress for a second. Positive Results Center addresses trauma from a cultural and age perspective. We address dating, domestic, and interpersonal violence. All of them are basically the same. Sexual assault and bullying. And
Mhm.
we work with youth to help them to become peer advocates and help them to understand what violence and abuse is, and then how they could work and help other people. So what
Mhm.
happens is we will often say, "Oh my God, I saw that, but I didn't
Mhm.
know what to do. I heard that, but I didn't know what to say." So
Mhm.
we teach them how to say, what not to say, and what resources are available. Until we educate people what violence is and stop leaving everything in a secret, because it is the silence that allows the violence to continue to grow.
Mhm.
So, what we have to do is educate those that are most likely to cause harm, which are boys and men. Let's teach them early on. Don't say things like, girl, smile. Why you not smiling? You need to smile because, otherwise I don't want to talk to you. Or if we smile, and every single woman, I dare you to ask a woman, have you ever been told by a man, oh, you smiling, you fine, you must want me? Wait, what? I'm
Mhm.
smiling because I'm happy. No, baby, I know you want me. We don't feel safe just walking down the street where
Mhm.
someone is catcalling us or wanting to touch us or grab us inappropriately. And so let's educate our boys and men and help them to understand that because you see a woman and she might look a certain way, even if she is wearing barely anything, that is not an invitation to touch her, to grab her, to make a negative comment about her. And because of laws from way, way, way ago, people think that women are somebody's property. We're not.
Mhm.
You can't just do anything to us. And
Mhm.
that includes people that you're married to or in a relationship with. We have to learn how to love ourselves and love those around us. And
Mhm.
so we work with a lot of men who have grown up in abusive homes, saw this, perpetrated violence in some degree or another until they learn that this is not okay behavior.
Mhm.
And what happens is we never check people and say, dude, that's not cool.
Yeah.
Girl, don't do that anymore. And this violence is now turning over to girls. We have conversations with girls like, don't grab a guy's personal parts. Don't, I mean, don't cuss a guy out. Don't hit guys. So we
Mhm.
have to have a real serious education. We have to stop putting blinders on and thinking it doesn't happen. And when we see little babies, and you see it all the time, a baby will hit the mom or hit somebody else and we'll laugh. Ha ha, that's so cute. That is
Sure.
not cute.
Right.
Check your child.
Right. 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 Interesting. Interesting. Now, okay, so you educate men, and I know you sent me a video here. If give me a few minutes, I'm gonna bring that up, and so we can share that with the people. And
Did I send you a video?
you did, and
Oh, our Promoting Healthy Manhood conference. Okay.
yes, is that a good representation of what you're talking about, or how you talk
Absolutely.
about
And
men? Okay,
let
pull
me
it up.
just set this up while you're pulling it up. So,
Sure.
we have a conference. It is called Promoting Healthy Manhood. We're so excited about this. We bring in boys and men, primarily Black and Brown boys and men, BIPOC men of all ages from about 8 to maybe 85.
Right.
And we find some dynamic, intelligent, bad, just super awesome men to have conversations with other men, because first off, we allow some women in the room, but we keep this sacred space for men because we women are having it all the time, and we want to make sure that the men are also having the conversation in a safe space where they can share their concerns.
Right.
We also don't want women who have been hurt to come in and hijack that conversation, because we can and we will. And so we don't allow any women to speak during this
Mhm.
conference. And when I say speak, they can't even ask a question. They can
Mhm.
write the question down, and a boy or a man in that room will ask that question and it will be shared. And
Mhm.
what's
Mhm.
dynamic about this is that the men all walk out, you'll see it, they'll walk out just excited, they've all engaged, and everyone is informed. And we've also been able to identify people who have been abused, both physically and sexually, who self-disclose at this conference. So go ahead.
It's interesting. I'm kind of chuckling to myself when you say you don't allow the women to come in, but man, I know. Look, Pastor said I'd like to have a meeting men only, and the sisters come anyway, just to be a part of it. And I'd be interested to understand how you keep the women from participating or saying anything during the men's only conference.
Well, it's just a matter of respect.
Yeah.
I am a Black woman, as you could tell, and we have an all Black female team. So we greet the men, we welcome them in. But after the conference opens up, I get 5 minutes to greet them, and no other women get to speak during that time. And we encourage that. And we ask the women once they register, as well as once they show up. So,
all right, let's get to it here. Let's see here. Hold on. Technology is something, y'all. We're getting to it. Promoting Healthy Manhood Conference. This is, I guess, from 2019. Let's check it out.
Personally, my whole life, I never forgave people, and I didn't really realize that. I knew it was something that was stopping me from truly just being happy.
I want to have a good relationship with my father, because if you hate your dad, your kids are going to grow up to hate you, and I don't want that.
My dad used to be my mom, so like I broke from that chain because I knew that being a woman is not right. Set as an example to follow.
we believe that violence and abuse begins in the womb. We believe that we can end and prevent violence and abuse by bringing men into the conversation. And so we really believe that promoting healthy manhood should happen on a consistent basis all throughout the United States. We pulled together a dynamic panel of men who were really authentic and honest about their experiences, because very often we feel like we're the only ones that has experienced something.
It isn't how many women I can have. It isn't how much money I can get by any means necessary. It ain't going out there, going into the prison system and coming back and all of a sudden getting your manhood back. Men provide, protect, and lead.
I was in a prison cell. I said if a cat could stay or if he got rolled up, but I had to do something that was against everything that I was used to. I wanted to save lives and change lives. So the young lady that killed my daughter, I told the young lady I forgave her. I said, I forgive her, and not only do I forgive her, I adopt her as my own daughter.
And it wasn't until that I started making amends with my father, when my father told me that he was sorry for the way he treated us. When I apologized to my father, then I was able to let go of all of those weights.
And once you come into this room and you hear the honesty, you hear the passion, you hear the trauma, you realize that you're not alone and that there is help. You could go through the healing, you could go through the recovery, and you don't have to live alone in your pain.
I have issues with my dad, and when I was hearing about all these grown men that also have issues with their dad, it was like wow, I didn't know that,
And I think it was really cool seeing how people care about the younger generations, because you don't exactly see that a lot, especially over social media and like TV and stuff.
What we need is to learn how to be better men and be fathers to our kids.
How can we help you do that?
And when we look at sexual assault, we know that people of color experience the highest amount of violence and abuse, especially Black women, Latina women, and Indigenous women. So in order to prevent that violence, we know that the vast majority of people who are abusers are men. That's not to say that every man is, but in order to prevent violence and abuse, we have to talk to the boys and the men about the pain that they're in and why they're creating more pain for everyone else.
Forgiveness is the biggest thing I learned. Like, it's important. I have to forgive everybody. You know what I'm saying?
The best part about today was how fathers and sons had a special bond with each other, like how to tie a tie and going over important stuff in life.
No matter how old you are, you can always learn something new in life. And one of the things I learned was forgiveness. Keep on working on that.
The most important thing, you got to forgive yourself. You got to forgive yourself.
We have to teach women that no matter what you have gone through and what your experiences are, that you do not deserve to be abused. You do not deserve pain. That you have the opportunity to live with joy and with happiness, without regret and with respect.
Wow, that's incredible right there. Really illustrates the work that you're doing. Man, this is what started you in this on this journey. I mean, this is a deep ministry. You know, what's the impetus for Kandee Lewis to start this work? Uh-oh.
Well, honestly, the Spirit moved me to be here. I was working in corporate America. I was vice president of sales of a technology company, and I was working in a very toxic environment. I just completely lost myself and lost my space in this world. I did have a breakdown because I was just not happy. And actually, I wasn't working and living in my purpose. And so my brother blessed me with this company. He had actually started it in 1994. And, you know, people say things like, he started this to work with youth who had been impacted by crack cocaine and drugs. But what he really was doing, it was the seed to lead us to be here today. And everything that he went through to build it, everything that I went through to be here is what is the purpose was for me to be here right now to have this conversation with you. So when I left corporate America, I just really didn't know what I was going to do. But I knew that I wanted to work with Black people, my people. As a sales hiring and training manager, I tried to hire as many people of color as possible. I always started with hiring Black men first because you're the least likely to get employed. And I need you to be the heads of the family and bring that resource home because we know that men are the providers and women are the protectors. And then we hired Black women, then Latino men, Latino women, and then everyone else. So I was trying to figure out, what can I do? I know that I have been blessed with many gifts, and I am a very spiritual person. And by that, I mean that because of these gifts that I have been given, if I do not use them, I could lose them. Yes. And gifts are special. So I wanted to share them with people. And we originally started with leadership. And I'll never forget, it was in January 2010. A young lady, little Black girl, 12 years old, asked me, did my daughter and I fight? And I was like, girl, look at me, I'm Black. Where'd I do that? No, that doesn't happen in my house. And I asked her if she fought with her mom. And she told me, please. I hit that bee so hard, she was knocked out for 2 days.
Oh, my goodness.
Right? And I said to myself, and because I listen to hear, and let me implore people to listen to hear, not to respond. I said to myself, wow, all these kids have been cussing. They're not really being rude and disrespectful. This is just their learned vernacular. Yeah. And then I had to ask all the other kids in the room. There were 27. It was January. All of them had had a fight, and half of them had had a fight with their families. And so as I looked around doing a needs assessment in LA, I found not a single agency that was solely focused on the violence and abuse that children, Black children and brown children experience from interpersonal violence. I'm not talking about domestic violence agencies whose real purpose is to help someone once they decide to leave. But how are we reaching them before? And there was a lot of work around gun violence and domestic violence, gun violence and gang violence. And I should really say more gang violence. But I didn't see anybody doing this work. And so this is a mission of love. I believe that we should all be able to live a life free from harm, that we are blessed people, And we need to know that we are loved and respected so that we can grow into that self that we were originally placed on this world for. And then also, Greg, quite honestly, to help educate people like you and other people who did not know or don't know that violence is happening. And then also work with people who know that it's happening, but feel like, well, it's been happening all my life. So this is just normal. It is not normal. Violence is not normal. And you don't have to live like this.
Right,
You
right.
deserve respect and love.
That's right. Deserve respect and love. Now, Kandee, I know you had. Did you have some presentation slides you wanted to share with us, or
I did, but actually, I think I've covered them all.
covered it all? We got it in.
Yeah, we've covered them all. I want to really lift up the family of Michelle Avan, as well as the thousands, maybe the millions of other families that are experiencing this heartache and hardship, because it happens all the time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we don't get, especially when we're talking about Black women and girls, we don't really get the news that is happening. There's some things that I want to share with you. I can just pull up my presentation on my phone because I did send it to myself.
Yes.
And that is some things that I want people to remember. So let me slide on down to that. Okay. So reasons why we don't report, because everybody asks why. First off, because we're not going to be believed. We're going to be shamed, blamed, rejected, and alienated. Like, I'm not going to hang out with you no more. So when somebody is in an abusive situation, they actually need your support. Now, what you also have to do is make sure that you don't become part of that, in that they constantly come to you and you say, I want to help, and they don't want the help. So you have to protect yourself. Abuse, we tell people what happens in this house stays in this house. No, that should not be the case, because what happens in the house is not only abuse, but there's often sexual assault. And we never, never, never talk about our children who are being beaten and abused and killed and sexually assaulted in the house. We also don't talk about the vicarious trauma. We do this little art workshop where we use the hands and we ask you to write on this hand what has happened to you, or what do you want someone to know? And one of the hands just hits me every time I read it. She says, I'm thankful that my neighbor is alive. I thought she was dead. We don't think about how our violence impacts not just one person, but the entire community. Some things that we should always remember is to believe them. Please always believe that person when they tell you something. Oh, where is this one? Oh, it's up here. Okay, here's what we need to know. Violence and abuse begins in the womb. Your unborn child is going to experience the same thing you do. Victims include children and pets. It's never your fault. Violence looks different for everyone. So you can't say, oh, it's going to look like this. It does not often look the same for everyone. Victims sometimes become abusers. You don't have to hit someone to be beaten. This is really important. And that the presence of a gun in a domestic violence situation increases the risk of homicide 500%. 500%. So we say, get a restraining order. We need to change the laws, because very often people will get restraining orders and they're killed after they get a restraining order. Police don't respond, and they say, this is the craziest thing, but I understand, but I don't. They say that we can't respond until something happens. But when something happens, it's usually that person is dead. So it's too late. I don't know what Michelle was going through. I don't know how long the abuse had happened. I heard that she had talked about getting a restraining order, and sometimes people will try and discourage you, especially women that are in the C-suite that have very high positions. Well, how's this going to look? How is everybody going to take this? What's your job going to say about this? What's the community going to say? Well, what we're saying is today she's been murdered, and that we are all devastated. Is there something that could have been done? I don't know, because every situation is different. There are Black women and children, and Latina women and Indian women, Indigenous women and Cuban women, women from all over the world that are experiencing this. There are also men that are experiencing this. There are same sex relationship people that are experiencing this. We've got to do better. We've got to tell someone. We've got to trust people, and we have to be trustworthy.
Mhm, mhm. Very, very, very interesting. You know, I'm a vice president and president-elect of the Arts Council for Long Beach. So when I saw in your documentation there that you had what was it, Arts for Healing, and then you even mentioned some of your arts workshops, I
Yes.
wanted to ask you about that. How does the arts contribute to this program of wellness for our community?
Art is such an important component to life. Think about art in so many different ways. So, first, music soothes our soul. We can all remember, we'll hear a song and we'll remember where we were, and it can put us in a very good space. Also, sometimes because we're so triggered by things and we don't feel comfortable saying things, that when we're doing art, it allows us to express what is hidden deep inside of us. So we're able to get things out. And we have art workshops that look like movement and music. It could be drawing, it could be poster boarding, and it just really puts people in a safe space.
Mhm.
We also use food as art. In my home and in many other homes, not just Black homes across the world, but when we invite you in, the first thing we ask you, are you hungry? Would you like something to eat? That's a sign of respect. So when we bring people together in all of our workshops, I don't care if we're just together for an hour or all day, we have food, because I don't know when you last ate. I do want to respect you and let you know I appreciate you. But also, what happens is once we eat, we start sharing and talking. So the conversation comes up naturally.
Mhm,
Art
mhm,
is important to healing. One of the other things that we do is we have an art exhibit. It's called The Face of Violence and Survival. And this came up because one time a man said, all you people. Like, what does that mean, all you people? All you people, you are always. And I said, well, what does that look like? And he just basically said a woman of color. So I reached out to some people that I know that had not only experienced violence and abuse, but their family member did, and their family member died. One of the people that we had is a young lady in Texas. She was the first person to be killed in a school by her partner, her boyfriend, and she was 15 years old. We put just everyday regular photos, put them in a frame on a wall, and under the picture, we tell their story, because we're a series of lived memories. When you look at a picture, the first thing you think is, do I know this person? They look
mhm.
familiar. You smile, you read the story, and you're like, oh my God, they don't look like that could happen to them. And that's
Sure.
the truth of the matter. That we don't think about domestic violence because we say, that doesn't look like that could happen to them,
Mhm, mhm.
but it can happen to any one of us. We're excited. I want to share that we're going to be doing another event in October, which is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And
Mhm.
we're going to be reaching out. We're looking for people who have experienced violence. We want to do a photo exhibit. We want to give them a beautiful photo, and we want to hear their truth. And that's the name of it: Speak Your
Mhm,
Truth.
mhm, mhm.
And because the more we share these truths, and let me just say this, it's not a story. I can argue with your story, but I can never argue with your truth. And the more we hear these truths, the more we realize this can happen, and the more we can prevent it.
Right. Yeah. You know, I'd like to connect with you. Maybe we could talk about bringing that photo exhibit, those art experiences out here to Long Beach and some of our activities here. I will speak with you offline. I got a couple opportunities coming up real soon.
That sounds excellent. We
Yeah.
we did an we reached out to Black artists last year, and we
Mhm.
have several pieces of art right now from Black artists. We call the project Love is War.
Love is
What does Love is War look like? Because, and let me just say this, um, yes, violence does look different. So
war. Mhm.
we call it Love is War because violence, not only is it a learned behavior, violence is not about love. Violence is about control and power. And so anyone could have that power and control. And even with financial, that person who is being abused can be the breadwinner, but that
Mhm.
other person has that power and control.
Mhm. 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 Wow, fascinating stuff. Fascinating, fascinating, fascinating. I just I really honor the work that you're doing, Candy. I'm just, in a very contemplative mood here, and I'm just thinking, just honor what you are doing right here. And this is a long road, but somebody's got to do it, right? And so you're the right woman for
Absolutely.
the job.
Well,
Yeah.
let me just be very clear. I am not alone in this work. I have
Mhm.
the most amazing team. I
Mhm.
tell you, my team is so dynamic and fierce. And by the way, we are seeking new people to work with us. So if you're
Mhm.
interested, contact us. But also, there are several people here in Los Angeles and across the country that's doing this work. And I
Mhm.
don't want to say like we're the only ones, but there are other people that are doing this work. Reach
Mhm.
out and touch somebody. Reach out and contact us. We do travel throughout the United States as
Mhm.
well. So we do workshops virtually and in person. And then some of the other things that we do, because you have to kind of step outside the box and look at things a little differently.
Mhm.
Because here's the thing, violence has been going on forever, ever, ever. And we have to do something different to reach everyone. Our children are experiencing violence in such high numbers. And we really, for years, people only address the survivor. We're
Mhm.
now working with the survivor, their children, the abusers, the non abusing people. Everyone has to be involved in this. Just like we say, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes the community in the world to prevent violence. Not
Mhm.
one single person is going to be able to do it. We have to do it collectively. We
Mhm.
have to do it intentionally. We have to do it with love and respect and
Mhm.
also forgiveness.
Now, I'm just thinking here as we get ready to close, what is your best success story in this work? What stands out where you say, you know what, that's the business?
Okay, so I have to tell you two of them. We
Okay.
also address people who are contemplating suicide. We had a
Mhm.
conference, and we hope to bring this conference back in 2022, and it's
Mhm.
called Stop the Pain. And there was a young lady in the middle of this conference. There's about 1,000 people around, and she
Mhm.
was just kind of standing there looking lost. And my spirit said, talk to her. When your spirit tells you to talk to someone, please do. It took me 3 minutes to have a conversation with this young lady who said she was bored. And I said, well, why are you here wasting your time and my time? Don't
Mhm.
waste your time. Don't be bored. You got dressed, you look good. Like, find something. There were 40 workshops that we were doing that day. Find something and get involved. And I asked for a hug because those were the days we could do hugs.
Sure.
3 months later, they contacted me. The organization she was with contacted me to say that they wanted to give me an award because that young lady shared with them that because of my interactions with her that took 3 minutes, saved her life because she had wrote in a binder that she was clutching to her chest that day that she was going to commit suicide that day. But it was my 3 minute interaction with her that changed her life and prevented her from killing herself. That's the
Wow.
first thing. That is the most powerful story. And I want you to know that I didn't know that girl, but my
Mhm.
spirit said, talk to her.
Mhm.
Follow your spirit, follow your intuition. And my most successful story is, or truth is, I was doing a workshop for some pregnant and parenting teens. And there was a 15-year-old girl, and all of these girls had had babies. They were as young as 12 to as old as 16. And we talked about healthy relationships. I helped her to rebuild a relationship with her partner, even though he wasn't with her. So, for the sake of the family, which is the child, it's important that your children know who their father is, even if their father is not interested in having a relationship with you. They should have a relationship with their child. And that class went so well. She contacted me 3 months after that and asked me if I could help her mother, because her mother was going through the same thing. And her mother continued to do that. And she was in a healthy relationship. She contacted me last year to say that not only has she graduated from college, her mother and her father had went through counseling and they got help, and they have a loving, healthy relationship. And although she is not with her child's father, she's remarried, he's remarried, and they have joint shared custody, and everyone gets together as a family. So know that there were days in the past that people said, if he or she is abusing you, leave. If he or she is abusing you, get help. Find out what can you do. It might be that you must leave that relationship to save your life and your children, or it might be that that person just needs help. We need to learn how to communicate. We have a poor way of communicating with each other. We've not learned how to love and respect and trust ourselves, much less anyone else. There's help, and we can help.
We didn't get a chance to really deep dive into your work in suicide prevention. I mean, that is a really profound, department, if you will. In this, I mean, I guess, yeah, well, in this little bit of time that we have left, maybe there might be somebody out there who has contemplated suicide, or those types of thoughts have crossed their mind. What would you say to them in this little bit of time? How can they get help? How can they reach out?
So I would first say to them, your life matters. You deserve to live. And whatever pain you're going through right now, I promise you, it will change tomorrow. And there are people that are wanting to help you, no matter what you're going through. And whatever I tell people, that no matter what has happened to you, that is not you. That is your experiences. And your experiences can change in a matter of hours, for the good or the bad. But for those that are experiencing violence, those who have been raped, those who have been hurt in many ways, or just dealing with some demons, know that there are people and resources here to help. You can contact us. You can contact me anytime. I keep my phone on 24 hours a day. You could text message me. You could email us. And if I can't help, I have a plethora of resources. And I'm going to share them with you, Greg, afterwards. It was on my presentation. But there are domestic violence shelters. There are hotlines. There for young people. There's an amazing organization called Teen Line that trains teens to know all of the things to say and how to help people. And they talk to each other. Peer education is critical. We have trained, I'm so proud of this team of Black youth in the Antelope Valley. We work with 19 transitional age youth. Those are people between 19 and 26, our particular group. And we train them on the 5 common mental health issues and how it impacts Black people. And then they train the community. It's not about me. It's about us. It's about someone else. So we have to learn how to train our youth and young adults and give them the same tools, and not wait for them to become my age and say, you got it now. I'm learning every day. I hope everyone else is learning every day. And allow us to be your partners, your thought partners, your conversation partners, your resource partners, your educational partners, because we want to help.
All right. Before we get out of here, what's a good email to reach out to you? And then you can share the rest with me later on. We'll put this one in the chat.
Okay. You can reach us at info, INFO, at PRC123 And you can also reach me directly, KandeeLe at prc123.org. We will make sure that we respond as soon as possible. And soon as possible usually means either immediately or definitely within 24 hours. We usually try and answer all emails and calls within a matter of hours.
All right. What was the email address you just gave again?
KandeeLe at prc123.org or info at prc123.org.
All right, Kandee Lewis, PRC Positive Results Corporation. Is that that's how I say it?
Is actually, we changed it. If you notice in the video with the men promoting healthy manhood, there was a red diamond on the black cloth and it was Positive Results Corporation. Well, we changed it, rebranded, and it's still Positive Results because that's what we do. That's what we make sure we get, positive results, but it's Positive Results Center because we are the center of the violence prevention field, and we are also building our own Positive Results Center to rebuild the family and rebuild and stabilize our community. So if you're interested in joining us in our building campaign or being part of our board or our team, please contact us. And Positive Results Center, where we're creating healthy families and relationships.
All right, Positive Results Center. There you have it, Kandee Lewis. Thank you so much for coming in and sipping coffee with us and sharing this very informational and vital, resource. I mean, we really need this information. We really, as we look at, violence, gender-based violence in our community and all of these mental health issues that we're faced with, we're abruptly awakened, to the issue as we look on the news of our dear sister, Michelle Avan. That's why we put this show together, reached out to you to try to, share some resources and information with the people, for the family and the community, our condolences. But we have to take a look inward and see how we can heal from this scourge of violence against one another. You can get this broadcast on Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Just join our Facebook page. That's where we're live. We're live over there on YouTube and all of that. You can go to Beach City Radio, beachcityradio.com, and listen to it, watch it on demand. And then the audio version only will be up a little later on this afternoon, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. I'm talking iHeart, Stitcher, Google, Spotify, just, wherever it is, we're there. Coffee Conversations with Greg J. You can get this episode and all the other past episodes that we have been able to put out there. We're just trying to build bridges out there and inform and inspire our community. I think we've got it covered here. I got a lot to think about today. I'll get off this and just kind of contemplate. Just a lot to think about, you guys. Any last words?
As you're contemplating, I just want other people to contemplate, and also for men to think about how you can be our safety partners.
All right, brothers. To be a safety partner, that's what we got to do. All right, y'all. Man.
Thank you, Greg.
Love one another. Love one another.
Yes.
Love one another.
In a non-harmful, non-hurtful way. It can be learned, and we can help you to learn it.
Look at that. All right, y'all. Peace and blessings.